Like a bird watcher, I watch my breath as it's coming in, and I watch my breath as it's going out, seeing it simply as it is, fast or slow, quiet or laborious, comforting or not. I notice it as it is, watching the in-breath, watching the out-breath. Like an MRI scanner, I use my awareness to scan my body slowly from the top of my head, aware that this is my head, aware that of the color of my hair. Has it changed? Aware of my forehead, aware of the muscles on my face. Smile and relax them. Continue to scan down my body part by part as I breathe in, and relax that part of my body as I breathe out. If there's pain in certain parts of the body, linger there a little more with your awareness, with tenderness and affection. Relax that part with your out-breath, scanning through the body, relaxing the body. Continue to use our ray of awareness to scan through our feelings. Breathing in, I'm aware of the feeling that is present in me, that is arising in me. Whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, or mixed, I'm aware of it as it is. And breathing out, I breathe smile, and relax that feeling. In breath, scanning through the feeling. Out breath, smiling, relaxing. Continue to use our awareness as the ray of mindfulness to scan through our thoughts. Breathing in, I'm aware of my thoughts, whether they are pleasant, unpleasant, kind or unkind. I'm aware of these thoughts as they are. And as I'm breathing out, I smile and relax these thoughts with my breath, my smile, and with my relaxed posture. In breath, aware of the thoughts. Out breath, smiling, relaxing them. Breathing in, I become aware of the landscape of my mind, whether it is quiet, pleasant, spacious, or is hectic, loud, or is barren. However it is, I'm aware of it. Breathing out, I smile and become familiar with what is in the landscape of my mind, moment to moment. In breath, aware of the landscape of my mind. Out breath, smiling, relaxing, being present for it. Dear beloved family and friends, I know you're here and I'm very happy. Okay. So today I would like to share with you about cultivating the landscape of our mind. And through the guided sitting, I think you can be aware of the landscape of our mind and how it manifests. How can we recognize the landscape of our mind? It is really through our breath that we see our mind. It is in our body that we see our mind, in our feelings and our thoughts. That's the landscape of our mind. Moment to moment, we can come back and check in and become aware of the present state of our mind. In Buddhist psychology, we use this circle to, it's a symbol of our mind, and it has different parts. We talk about different levels of consciousness, different kinds of consciousness. And for the six sense organs, we have, for example, we have the eye here, the nose, the mouth, okay, the tongue, the mouth, okay, the body, the body, okay, and the mind. We call these the six sense organs. Okay? So with the eye, we have the eye consciousness. The ear consciousness. Did I skip one? Yeah, the ear. The eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, the nose consciousness, the tongue consciousness or the mouth, the tongue, the body consciousness, and we have the mind consciousness. Okay? Mind consciousness here. So that's six consciousnesses already we have. Okay? Down here, when it's hidden from us, more latent, we have the store consciousness. Okay. This we also call the eighth consciousness. So we have six consciousnesses that are more visible, more accessible, and this is the eighth consciousness. So where's the seventh? It's right here. This layer we call mana, or the seventh. I have to be so quiet and gentle with this microphone. I have to be more demure than I usually am. So we have with mana, the seventh consciousness is like our ego, our sense of self. Yeah. And it arises from the store consciousness, and actually all of these consciousnesses, they arise from the store consciousness. And in like modern terminology, we can think of our genes, our genetic inheritance, and how from the inheritance from our grandparents, great grandparents, our ancestors, human ancestors, and also animal ancestors and plant ancestors, all of their consciousnesses come together and give rise to our body, to our eyes, our ears, the skin color, the hair color, the personality, the genetic predisposition, that gives rise to us. So this is the collective consciousness from many generations, from different kind of species that come and manifest us as individuals. But as individuals, we are from the collective. And as a collective, we are made up of the individuals, right? So it's important to have this awareness of our consciousness, because with the topic on cultivating the landscape of our mind, we know that if we are aware of these consciousnesses or these parts of ourselves, then we can take care of them more concretely. I also have this model. I don't know if you have seen these beans before. We call them the yin yang beans. And this is a bigger model of it. Okay? So you can see that this is an actual bean you can order online. You can plant them and you can also eat them. So half of it is black and half is white. And on the black part, there's the white dot, and on the white part, there's the black dot. So it's called the yin yang bean. And we see that because it's in the black, there is the white. And in the white, there is the black. You see? And it's an excellent model also for our mind. You see? This is our mind consciousness, and this is our store consciousness. And we see that in the white, there's the black. So in our mind consciousness, it comes from the store consciousness. There's the store consciousness. So whatever that is arising from our mind consciousness, for example, the feelings, we can be aware of our feelings, right? But they have their roots in the store consciousness. Or thoughts that arise, if we have mindfulness, we have awareness, we can be aware of our thoughts. But our thoughts, when they manifest here, they also have roots in the store consciousness, right? And so when we learn to cultivate the landscape of our mind, the Buddha taught about the four nutriments. How can we nourish our mind? For the four nutriments, the Buddha said, nothing can survive without food. If your depression is severe, it's because in our daily life, we have been feeding our depression with our consumption through our six sense organs, through our thoughts, our feelings, we have been feeding that depression. If our anger is very strong, if it's more obvious now than 5 years before or 1 year before, it's because we have been feeding our anger. So whatever that we see, very salient, very strong, very domineering in ourselves, it's because we have fed it. And so the Buddha taught about the 4 kinds of nutriment. The first kind of nutriment is through edible food. Okay? So that comes to this mouth right here, the tongue. We take care of it first. The food in our daily life, the things that we eat, we drink, that's edible food. And it can also affect our thoughts and feelings. When I was in medical school, I used to go to Indian restaurants. I love Indian food. But every time afterwards, I always felt like this bloatiness, this heaviness. For some reason, I never put the 2 and 2 together. Have you had that before? You eat like 5 pieces of pizza and you feel really sick afterwards, and somehow you just never put the 2 and 2 together. Wow. But when I became a nun, I learned to pay attention. If certain things I eat in that moment, and I feel the craving, oh, I want more. You're eating this, but you're already thinking about the next piece of pizza, right? Or the next ice cream cone. You know it's watering your craving. You're restless as you're eating. Versus if you're eating a carrot, you never think, oh, I can't wait till the next carrot. Right? That's awareness. Yes. And then afterwards, within 2 minutes, within 10 minutes, an hour, 3 hours later, how do you feel? Does it make you feel heavy, bloated, or does it make you feel satisfied and light? And then a day later, when you use the restroom, right? What comes out of it? Yes, that's mindfulness. We learn to be aware of what's coming in and what's going out. That's the input and the output. The foods and the drinks that we take in affect our mind immediately and long term. So whatever that comes in through our mouth, so first the mouth first. It will go through our mind consciousness, go into our store consciousness, and it will affect us, the way we have a relationship with food. Yeah? How we deal with our difficulties, how we resort to food as a coping mechanism. Now, the second nutriment that the Buddha taught, it's really about the other 5 sense organs called sense impressions. Sense impressions through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the body, and mind. That's sense organs. Okay? We learn to be aware what we consume daily through our eyes. Images, movies, images, advertisements, we consume. And what we consume also becomes the output. Okay? We consume and then we produce. Input and output, they inter-are. Like this, the yin-yang bean, we also call this an inter-bean. An inter-bean, because in the black, there's the white. In the white, there's the black. They inter-are, okay? So there's this nature of inter-being, input and output. of input and output. What we consume through our ears, the music, the conversations, they affect the wellness of our body and of our mind, specifically our thoughts and feelings and perceptions and attitudes. The nose, we smell. Have you ever walked through and then you smell the cooking and you think of mom or dad or you think of grandma? That's the ear, the tongue consciousness or the smell consciousness. We start to salivate, right? You start to think of something. So anything from the environment, any kind of stimulus, it affects our mind. It brings up certain memories, pleasant or unpleasant. And it causes our body to change, whether in that moment we feel safe, like for example, touch, through the body. The skin is the largest sense organ. And touch is very important. You may, even the person is just sitting next to you, hasn't even put a hand on you, but you feel safe, you feel comfortable, versus you feel unsafe and you feel scared. You see? So this awareness of our sense impressions of these other five sense organs or of our mind, the thought that we think of. I've been reading a book called The Hidden Life of Trees, and I really hope that all of us read this book, because when I read this book, I learned things that I have not known all of these years of my life. There's so many insights and so many interesting things about the life of trees. But for example, we use this analogy of the trees. Now, a year, an oak tree may produce 2.6 million seeds. That's a lot of seeds, and we see that. All of these seeds. And really just one seed becomes a tree, an actual tree, because the other ones, they may never germinate, or they may become a sapling or a plant and they get destroyed somewhere along the line or eaten up. Just think of every day when we produce thoughts through our mind, thoughts, speech with our mouth, and bodily actions. We produce how many millions and billions thoughts and words and bodily actions do we produce? These products of our speech, actions, and thoughts, where do they go? They fall right back on the ground, most of them. And then they cultivate, they affect our store consciousness, right? The seed comes from the store consciousness. Like, this tree, it came from a seed. It sprouted, germinated, became a plant, and became this tree. But then this tree will go back and give the seeds, and then will affect the soil and will feed the tree. And of course, there are other squirrels and other insects. They will also eat. They will carry the seeds away, make it their nutriment. And so you can see that the seeds affect the tree itself, the soil, but also so many different other living beings. And similarly, as human beings, we are very much like that. Our thoughts, our speech, our bodily actions, which we call the three karmas in Buddhism. Karmas mean action, an action of the mind, of the mouth, and of the body. We produce constantly like this, and they in turn will affect us, and they will affect our loved ones, those who are near us, and those who are far away from us. And they affect now and a long time to come. So this analogy can be very, very helpful. It helps us to become more aware and more responsible. I know when I was in college, there was a mentality, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, it doesn't matter. Or you fantasize things in your head, you're like, oh, it's just in my head, it doesn't matter. But whatever that we think in our mind, it will come out of our mouth and it will come out of our body through speech and bodily actions. So that's why we learn to be very mindful of what we consume through the mouth, but also through the eye, the ears, the nose, the touch, the body, and also what we think, and what other people think and feel. We become aware instead of receiving them unmindfully or carelessly. And the third nutriment the Buddha taught about is volition. Volition, or we can also call that as a deep desire or intention. Deep desire, okay, intention. And this, actually, the Buddha is addressing this mind consciousness, okay, this mind. So we have covered these five senses of consciousness, right? The eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body. And this volition, that's through our mind consciousness. When I went to school, one of my colleagues, he wanted to become a radiologist because he wanted to become a millionaire. That was his volition, his intention. I'm sure he became a radiologist, and most likely he could become a millionaire. So we ask ourselves, what are our desires? And do they bring us true happiness? Many doctors get burned out. Right? We become very bitter, very burned out. And many times I wanted to avoid my patients because of the stress level, because of the suffering I couldn't take care in myself. And the suffering from the patients was just too much. And I would rather look at the screen, check the lab results, than to see a patient. So I would delay, postpone seeing them. So we see that when we have a certain intention, it can help us to have more energy, more motivated for something, or it will drive us to a certain direction, and it becomes our way of being, our personality, our destiny. See? What we think, what we say, what we do, day by day, they become habitual, become habits, and that in turn becomes our own personality and our destiny. So this volition, we need to see often, what do I really want? Do I want to compete? Do I want to argue? Do I want to get the upper hand? Or do I want peace? When I came to the practice, I learned from our teacher this teaching about dục an, tất an. It means dục an means want peace, tất an, there's peace, then peace. That was a very powerful teaching for me. Because before that, I always felt I was a victim of the circumstance. More like, when something pleasant happens, you laugh. And when something undesirable, unpleasant, then you frown, you scowl, or you get angry. But no, if you want peace, then peace. It means that we have that capacity to take care of our mind, take care of our six sense organs, of our store consciousness, so that we are proactive instead of being passive. So this volition. And the fourth nutriment is consciousness. And this really addresses the store consciousness, the eighth consciousness. when we go to buy, we go to buy um, some cereal, we see there are like 20 brands, and we think we are choosing the brand we like. But really, it's already in the collective consciousness. People, your companies already invest millions of dollars to advertise these brands of cereal or of clothing, of iPads, you see? So it's pretty much we really are not choosing. You either fit in this one category or the other, but you are trapped. That's not a real choice. Like nowadays, I see people always on their iPhone. Always. We say we don't have time. We need more time. And yet every moment we have to check our iPhone. We have to check email, go on, check the social media. That's the collective consciousness. It's almost like if you're not doing that, there's something abnormal about you. You need to look busy. You need to look important because you have messages to check. That's collective consciousness. And it becomes the individual consciousness. We feel pressured to do so. And it becomes our own habit, our own personality. Are you able to just sit still, do nothing, and just watch the moon? Or watch a rabbit running across the road? Or just simply just sit there and look at your loved ones? Because if we are always busy, always crowding our mind with input through the eye, with the eye consciousness, through the ears, the nose, the mouth, sometimes, we are working on our computer lab or looking at messages in the iPhone, and we're eating at the same time, and we're listening to music at the same time, and we're doing so many things at the same time, you are bombarding all of your sense organs. You are clouding your store consciousness. And therefore, you're not aware of what's really there. The landscape is just it's bustling with activities. It's too crowded, too hectic, too chaotic. And thus it will be very difficult to become aware of what's rising. As thoughts and feelings, we may not even know what we feel or what we're thinking because everything is crowding up, right? So it's important to quiet down. So let us enjoy one sound of the bell and just close all our sense organs. Close our eyes. Just breathe and quiet down everything. I work a lot with young people, And I see that many young people, even as children, teenagers, and young adults, they suffer a lot from depression, anxiety disorder, this sense of alienation from the family, from society. And I see that a big part of it because of the way our society operates nowadays, with the example of always constantly bombarding ourselves with information, always busying ourselves with the internet, with activities. We are not able to be with ourselves, to embrace what is in us. And so we self-regulate. There's stress, there's pressure, there's tension, there's the work, at workplace, in the family, in the world. There's a lot of stressful events and responsibilities. And in order to escape that, we go to certain activities in order to shut out everything, right? If you feel stressed out, even my niece, 7 years old, she said, I need to relax. And you know how she relaxes? She gets out her iPad and she plays games and she watches YouTubes. That's how she relaxes. And sometimes when I come, she frowns because with me being there, she cannot play her iPad. She cannot relax. Do you do that? That's how you relax? But while you're watching movies, while you are checking out your social media, you are bringing in more information, more dramas from others, from the world. And dramas are traumas. Yes. So we self-regulate, we numb ourselves by being in this, surreal, abstract, this virtual reality. And yet, all of that comes in, is deposited into our consciousness, and all of that will stir up what's already in us, overcrowded, and more depressing, angry thoughts, jealous thoughts will arise, those thoughts and feelings. And so in that way, many young people become withdrawn, become socially awkward, because they're not able to communicate their thoughts and feelings, and they feel safer, and it saves time to just get stuck in here instead of trying to get help, instead of trying to communicate the difficulties, the problems. You see? Can you see it in yourself? That's a coping mechanism we have. We either fight when a situation comes, when there's difficulty. We may have used the coping mechanism, such as fighting, some of us. Or we may use a coping mechanism of flight. We run away from that situation. Or we may freeze. So we have the three responses: fight, or flight, or freeze. And as children, as a young person, certain traumas took place in our life, and we use one of those mechanisms, or maybe they're mixed, but it becomes a habit that we resort to that mechanism. When something happens, we fight, and we're so hostile and so vulnerable. Or we're used to just withdraw. We just shut down, shut out, shut everybody out of our life, and get into this small screen that seems more containable, more manageable. So we need to recognize in our daily consumption, we ask ourselves, what am I eating? What am I drinking? And how is it feeding me? How is that feeding this coping mechanism that I have? You see, you recognize that. Or through my sense impressions, am I trying to numb something in myself? Or am I trying to open up myself and enlighten myself about my life? We can see that. We can see these are also landscapes of our mind. You get in touch with your body, and if it's always tense, if your breath only at the neck level or at the chest level, you know there's a lot of stress and tension chronically in you. Or ask for the intention. What is my intention? In my daily life, when I have conflicts with others, and which we do, as monks and nuns, we do have conflicts, and I always come back to tell myself, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I choose peace. And however upset I am towards somebody, I close my eyes and breathe and say, may you be more skillful, may you be kind, may you be safe, may you be happy. It's so important to remember that. It's so important to walk by your coworker or somebody that you have problems with, or somebody who has problems with you, and breathe and walk gently. Do walking meditation to protect your own consciousnesses. Because another person's anger, if you are wide open like a house with all open doors, the wind will go in. And it can stir everything up. So mindfulness helps us to be aware of these doors of entrance, to close them properly, timely, to open them to only nourishing stimuli, information. You see? And for us, when we wish ourselves well, when we wish another well, it is actually protecting our own store consciousness. Because every single thought that is unkind, that is ruthless, harsh, it goes right into our store consciousness and affects us. We are the first ones to suffer from our own thoughts and feelings. They feed back each other constantly like that. And before we know it, we can become such a bitter, angry, depressing person that no one wants to be near us. And it manifests in our face. Actors and actresses know this, right? If they want to play the role of a mean person, they put on their makeup a certain way. They hold their facial features in such a way that you know they're upset or that they are, evil, right? Well, everything about us manifests in our face, through our facial expressions. Everything about us manifests in our body, in our way, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we think. So in that way, when we give rise to love, to compassion, to forgiveness, that is to protect us, to protect ourselves. That is to help heal the world, to embrace the world, instead of planting more seeds of hatred, of discrimination, of preferences. We want that inclusiveness, that nature of interbeing to be more and more fostered and more nourishing for us all. Okay? So these are the 4 nutriments, and they relate directly to this Buddhist psychology that we learn about. And so let us enjoy one sound of the bell. May I be safe. May I choose to be safe. May I choose to be loving and generous and kind. May you be safe. May you choose to be happy. May you choose to forgive and to live generously for your own sake and for everyone's sake. As animals or humans, all beings, deep down inside us, we all want to be safe. We all want a chance to live, not just to survive, but to live meaningfully, to love and to be loved. In Vietnamese, there's a word that is very telling, very deep. That's the word soulmate. We think of soulmate as somebody who's outside of us, who knows us well, who loves us unconditionally, who's always there for us. In the Chinese characters, this is the Vietnamese, soulmate is tri kỷ. Tri means to remember, to know, to care for, or master. Okay? Tri kỷ means oneself. A soulmate is one who remembers, who knows, who cares for, who masters herself, himself. All our lives, we may seek a person who can be our soulmate. But how many of us have found that soulmate? And even if some of us are so fortunate, we find that person who loves and accepts us, but we will push that person away. We will walk all over that person because we don't know how to be our own soulmate. So tri kỷ, we learn to be aware of the foods that we consume and produce. What we consume is also what we produce. And what we produce, we also consume that. We say a harsh word, in that very moment, your body consumes it. Your body tenses up. You look ugly when you say something so harsh, so angry, right? Yeah? We learn to be a soulmate to ourselves by being aware of what we consume and produce through our mouth, our speech, what we consume through our sense organs of eyes, ears, nose, mouth, body, what we consume and produce through our intention, and daily what we become aware of, what we invest in, what is arising in us. We need to be aware of the input and the output and get to know deeper ourselves. So that's the exercise for us, okay? To learn to be a soulmate, one who remembers, who knows, who cares for what he, she, what you are consuming through these sense organs, through the mind. Another practice that we can use is you just visualize an MRI scan. Like I was sharing in the beginning, an MRI scan, it just takes pictures and then you can view it, where we can just close our eyes and come back to our breath. As a breath watcher, you just watch the breath as it's coming in, The breath is going out. In breath, out breath. In that moment, the mind is aware of the breath, and thus the mind is aware of the body, and mind and body are together in oneness, instead of being so divided, so split. Mind and body can be in oneness. And then we use that energy of mindfulness to scan through our body from top to toes, regularly wherever you are. When you are sitting in a car driving, don't talk, don't listen to music, just breathe and just relax your body. Just scan through and relax your body part by part. Look at the scenery, the trees, the flowers that are blooming. Bring into your consciousness signs of life, the fresh air, the full moon. Bring in those gentle, spacious, beautiful images. Don't bring in something that is so crowded and harsh and heavy. Choose. In a spiritual life, we have a choice. If we live unmindfully, we live according to our instincts, then we really have no choice. But even neuroscience, when I was in medical school, I learned the brain was just fixed. But later, we talked about neuroplasticity. Yes, and that in Buddhism, the Buddha taught about that 2,500 years ago. The Buddha taught about impermanence, about non-self, right? If we are permanent and fixed, and then yes, the brain is just fixed and everything is just immutable, unchangeable. But no, because we are impermanent and we are made of so many factors of ancestors, animals, plants, society, education, collective awareness. Therefore, we can change. And we change at a very deep level through our way of thinking, through our attitude, but also as we think more positively, we learn to speak more positively, we learn to pause, to stop before we act out. We affect even the neurotransmitters that are secreted into our bloodstream. So we change ourselves at all fundamental levels, biologically, physiologically, psychologically. We change. Right in this very lifetime, right in every moment, moment to moment, we really have a choice. And not like you think you have a choice with cereal or clothing or iPhone 10 or 11. That's not a choice, okay? The real choice is to become aware of what you're consuming, what you're producing, and breathe and relax and release it. Let it go. If it's not nourishing for yourselves and for others, learn to let it go little by little, bit by bit. So my dear ones, that's the sharing for today. And if you would like to read more, I just want to mention again the book, The Hidden Life of Tree, which is very deep. Another book from our teacher, is Understanding Our Mind, so that you understand more what I share briefly today. Okay? And another book is The Body Keeps the Score. Very amazing, very insightful. So these 3 books, I strongly recommend you to read, and then in that way you become more aware and your practice can deepen moment to moment, day by day. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters. Let us sit up beautifully. enjoy a stable sitting posture. That is also a way to nourish ourselves. When we feel bad, our body becomes crooked, right? Like when we sit up straight to straighten the mind and the thoughts and the feelings. Gentle but upright. We come back to the breath. I'm here. I'm here for myself. I'm here for the little child in me who was wounded, who's still wounded in me. I'm here for you. May I be your soulmate. May I remember you. May I get to know you. May I care for you better